Evening all. Second session, oh that's a lie, third session of 2022. My last video, which was my first session of 2022, was a very good little session, and I'm glad you guys liked the video. I snuck out the night after as well. I have a very understanding wife. And a little bit further back down the beach, back to my usual spot from the fishing for rays on Southbourne, I think it was called, video. And although I had a lot less fish, I did have my first sizable blonde ray, which I'm very, very pleased with. It was only 514, which in blonde ray terms is pretty minuscule, but I was very happy with it. So, 2 sessions last week, 2 good sessions, very happy. This week, change of venue. At the risk of becoming a one-trick pony, I didn't want to go back down Southbourne and fish for more rays. I realised that doing more videos, the downside to doing more videos is, unless I can travel all around the place and world and stuff, I'm a little bit restricted this time of year. There's only so many species I can catch this time of year. So, although I might catch the same species tonight, dogfish, pouting, whiting, maybe a bass, I've come to a different venue, so I've come to Friars Cliff. It's a really, really, really great venue for anybody who either doesn't like walking very far, or is perhaps a bit green to sea fishing, that sort of thing, because generally speaking it's a very short walk from where we park, and it's generally speaking very short cast to catch fish. It's really simple stuff. So I'm going to go right back to sort of bread and butter basics tonight. I'm going to put 2 rods out. I've got a rod with a 2-hook loop. That's not necessarily bread and butter basics, is it? But I'm going to put a slightly bigger bait out on the hope we catch something vaguely exciting. Maybe a dog, maybe a ray, you never know, you do get a few rays down here as well. But I'm also just going to use what we call a 2-up, 1-down flapper. For those of you who don't know what a 2-up, 1-down flapper is, a flapper is simply a rig that you don't clip the snoods down for distance casting. So the snoods are literally left flapping. 2-up, 1-down means there's 3 hooks, 2 of which are above the lead and 1 of which the snood would be hanging below the lead. Now this particular one is what we call a 2-foot 2-up, 1-down. So we have 2-foot snoods, okay? So you probably won't be able to pick this up in the video very well, but there's the top of my rig. There's my first 2-foot snood. There's the middle of my rig, which is 2 and a bit foot further down than the top snood, with my second 2-foot snood. And then right down the bottom of the rig is my 3rd hook, and again my other 2-foot snood. So that one's going to be fishing below the lead, the other 2 are fishing above the lead. I've gone with some size 4 owner pint hooks, don't know how well you can see them, might not be able to see them at all, and a little glow-in-the-dark squishy pop-up thing. Now I will add, these pop-ups I'm put on there for visual attraction and a little bit of movement. The sea, despite what you might be able to hear, sounds really rough, but it's not, it's pretty calm. So a little bit of movement with these pop-ups. A lot of people think if you stick on a pop-up then it's going to lift the bait right off the bottom. Unless you're using small baits and big pop-ups, it very rarely does do that. By the time I've stuck a little bit of ragworm on here and a little bit of fish, that tiny pop-up isn't going to be buoyant enough to actually lift the bait. But what it's going to do is add A, fish attracting colour, B, fish attracting movement. So just sort of like it's just going to like move about a little bit with the sort of the ebb and flow of the tide, and the wave action, that sort of thing. If it's really rough, like really sort of crashing, that sort of thing, I won't use a pop-up, and I won't use, you know, you could go shorter snoods and a little bit heavier line, that sort of thing. This is 030, bit of 030 fluorocarbon tied to my size 4 owner pint, which is fine when it's relatively calm and settled. If it's really rough, this might end up just being a tangled knot of doom. So yeah, so that's going to go out on my lighter rod. The 2-hook loop with sandeel and squid, usual stuff, you know me by now, predictable. It's going to go out on my other rig. I'm going to use a pyramid lead for my flapper and a normal grip lead for my loop. Again, I'm using the grip lead not to fight the tide, because there was absolutely no tide down here whatsoever. Even on a big spring tide, there's still no tide, and we've got a rubbish tide tonight. But it's just to help set the hook against that hard, bony mouth of a dogfish or a ray or something. with the smaller baits and smaller presentation, chances are pouting and whiting and things like that, so you don't necessarily need to use grip leads to set the hook. And not using the grip leads means I can just twitch and move my bait about if I want to. But yeah, one thing I want to show you, which I always do when I first get to a venue, especially a venue like this, which can be particularly weedy, I just want to show you something I do before I set up. So when I first get to the beach and I've decided where I'm going to fish, I'll have a little walk down to the water's edge. Now what I'm looking for here is sort of weed on the beach. Along Friars Cliff, Steamer Point, that sort of thing. This can be a weedy venue and it can be a bit of a pain in the backside. So if you have a little walk down the water's edge, just in the sort of edge of the water here and just where the wash is, I'm just looking for weed. As you can hopefully see on the camera, there's none here at all, which is great news. Now why do I do this? Obviously it's to do with the positioning. Hang on a minute, it's probably really loud, you probably can't hear a word I'm saying. Right, let's try that again. So to do the positioning of my rods. So now I've figured out that there's no weed down here. I'm happy to have my rods a little bit lower in the tripod. I don't have to worry about keeping my rod tips really, really high and out the weed in the edge. So I'm going to set up my rods similar to I had them the other night. Again, facing along the beach, parallel to the sea, but the tip's not too high. Just makes it easier to fish, it's more comfortable. Right, now we've had a little look at the sea. You can see it's nice and friendly. I'm just going to show you how I bait up a worm. These are common garden varietal ragworms. Garden varietal, obviously they don't grow in the garden, but you know what I mean. A couple of little tips for you. First of all, baiting needles. Don't be afraid to use tools that are available for you. There's this ridiculous machoism in fishing where people, for some God knows reason, don't like using baiting needles. It's like some kind of judgment on their fishing abilities or something. It's not. It's a simple tool that's going to make your life easier. If you think this is going to be a judgment on your fishing, grow up. Yeah, these are really, really useful, really, really handy, dead cheap, and should be in everyone's toolbox. Especially useful if you're baiting up short shanked hooks, so wormer hooks, these owner pints, that sort of thing, because they're a little bit fiddlier to bait up than a longer shank Aberdeen. Two main ones I use, Stompfo Red Point, which is quite a fine, delicate baiting needle. Probably don't need that tonight because I've only got ragworm, but if I had things like whites or maddies, that sort of thing, they're a great needle. And the other one's just the simple Gemini 9-inch baiting needle. Best thing about the Gemini and the Stompfos is they've got a relatively rounded end. If you're buying a needle, don't buy one with a razor sharp pointy end. You don't want one of those, they're rubbish. The reason why they're rubbish is as you're threading the needle through the worm, they keep spearing out the side of the worm. Right. Tip number 2. With your ragworm, because we don't want a whole ragworm on the hook, we're only fishing relatively smallish baits here. Head end, chop it off. Off with your head. Couple of reasons behind this. Chop for the tail as well. Reason number 1 is, hopefully you can see this, all this juice that's now coming out. So I've topped and tailed my ragworm and loads of juice is releasing. So that's all, you know, fish attracting flavours and stuff. It's fantastic. The other reason is the little bit behind the head is the hard gristly part. So if you ever struggled to get that ragworm up and over around the eye of the hook and that sort of thing, because it gets stuck on the head, then chopping off the head is going to save you so much time. Cut. That was turning into a disaster. The rain was coming in, the lens was getting all smeary, and gradually as we were going through that piece you couldn't see anything. So, using the powers of modern technology, I thought I'd bring you into the shop, into the warm and dry, to show you the baiting up bit. So I'm going to demonstrate what I was trying to demonstrate in that disaster of a video in the shop, and then we'll cut back to the fishing and see how I get on. Right, here's what I was trying to show you before the doom and gloom came in and smeared out my video. So, here's exactly the same rig I was using last night. This is the very one I was using. Ragworms, bit of mackerel. Hopefully, as you saw initially in the video, we top and tail our ragworms. That allows a lot of juice release, scent release. It also makes it a lot easier to actually bait up. With the solid point of our needle, thread it all the way through that section of ragworm we've cut, like so. We're then going to put the needle in the hollow point, no, put the hook in the hollow point, sorry, of the needle, and then slide that worm up and onto the hook. Easy as that. Baiting needles really do make that very, very easy. And then last night I was tipping off with a little bit of fish. Only a small square of fish, so I'm going to just trim a bit like so. First thing to do, this section of fish is quite thick, although it's a nice thin sort of strip. It's got quite a lot of flesh on the back. Now if I put the hook straight through that flesh can be hiding the hook point, and that's always a big no-no. You want as much hook point exposed as possible. So trim all that flesh off so you've got a nice thin bit. And then I'm just going to cut it into a small square. It's about, what's that, sort of fingernail size, isn't it? Just like when I paint my fingernails for the evenings. And then just hook it once. Oop. There we go. Perfectly presented little bit of section of worm tipped off with mackerel. Small, neat, compact. Nice and easy with a baiting needle. Let's just quickly show the baiting needle one more time, just to prove how easy it is. If you follow the simple rules. So rule number 1, head, tail, section of worm. Once you start doing that, you'll go, oh, baiting up with these things is so much easier. Thread needle all the way through. Hollow point, no, that's it again. Hook point into the hollow point. Keep that line tight. If it's not tight, as you push the worm up, then the hook's going to pop off. Just like that. Easy as that. And then, just because we can, let's just tip off with that bit of fish. Just to fill it. There you go. Perfecto. Now, back to wet and cold Tom on the beach last night. See how he's getting on. Much better. Again, always think about your presentation. Am I getting the maximum efficiency out of this presentation? Am I going to definitely catch a fish if a fish has a nibble on that? If you look at your bait and think, I reckon a fish can nibble at that for quite a while without getting a hook in it, change your bait presentation. Right, there we go. I'm going to clip this up, and cast it out. Get it the right way around. I'll probably only cast it about 600 yards. I'm, hold back a little bit. No, I'm joking. I'm going to give it a bit of a whack, maybe 100 yards, something like that, and see what's around. Keep an eye on that little scratching one as well. I said I'm expecting bites relatively quickly tonight, which is probably the kiss of death. 3 hours later, just had my first bite. No, I'm joking. There will be fish. Rubbish times, but there will be fish. Keep the faith, as John Boy Dirty once said. Righto. Yep. So rig was baited up, ready to go. Went to cast it out, and yep, missing something there. So top tip: don't forget to put your reel on your rod. Otherwise, you look like a complete wally on your video. Yeah, years of experience has taught me that, and that's not something I expect you guys to understand and know, that you have to put a reel on a rod, obviously. So yeah, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a reel on the rod. Technical stuff. And then I'm going to cast that rig out. One for the bloopers. go, nice little rattly bite on the small rod there. Likely to be that sort of little pouting or little whiting, as you'd expect to catch down here on a January night. Whee, there we go, look. Right, let's get her in, see what it is. Might look energetic and like a decent fish, but very light tipped rod, very close range. Always exaggerates the bites. Again, that was just a really leisurely little sideways flick out into the sea, probably 40 yards if that. And it's waiting. There you go. A little waiting. Fish number one. Right. Here's our little pin whiting. It is reasonably well hooked, quite deeply hooked. Sorry, just throw the camera around a little bit there. Let's see if we can get the hook out, shall we? If you're using one of these Stomfo disgorgers, first things first is try and pull out as much stuff as you can, so any bait stop or needle or anything. And then all we're doing is putting the line into the slot, pushing it down as far as you can go, and give it a quick jerk over a bucket of water, so it lands in a bucket of water hopefully. And there you go, and the hook comes out. Really easy. Let's have a look what's on there then, shall we? A double shot of pin whiting. You seem to be getting small. Well, there we go. Plenty of fish around tonight. It might only be little tiny pin whiting. Oh, you know, chuck my rig and my bucket, got it all tangled up like this. But it does prove that you can come down even in the middle of January and catch a few fish. Anyone can catch fish down here. They're, like I say, 30, 40 yards out. You don't need to be a big caster. You don't need any fancy rigs, simple flapper rigs, which you can buy pre-made ones quite simply from most good tackle shops. And simple bait. I mean, I've got ragworm and mackerel here. To be honest, you can do it with just mackerel. So it doesn't have to be expensive. Just tip off little tiny cubes of mackerel. 2 fillets will do you a fair night session. Not had anything on the distance rod. Well, that's a bit of a lie actually. I have had something on the distance rod, a tiny whiting, but not had anything decent on the other rod yet, on the bigger baits. But so far, plenty of bites on the smaller rod, as expected. Smaller fish, but fun to catch. One thing you can get in the habit of doing, rod's bouncing away already, it's only been out there 2 minutes. One thing you can get in the habit of doing, not get in the way, get in the habit of doing, is baiting up a spare rig. So both my rods are out there. My close range rod, boing, 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 bounce, 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 more little fish. So what I'm doing now is I'm getting a second rig baited, ready to go. So then when I reel in that one, I've got a baited rig ready to just clip on and cast out straight away. If you, I mean, you don't have to do that, but sort of maximise the time you have on the beach. So if you just reel in your rod and then unhook the fish and then rebait that rig and blah 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 blah, that's going to take you, I don't know, 5 minutes or so to do all that. And if you do that 10 times throughout the evening, that's 50 minutes you've not fished for. That's 50 minutes of wasted fishing time. At least this way, I'm only out the water for as long as it takes me to basically, well, from the moment I start reeling in that rod to unclipping my rig, clipping my fresh one in, casting back out. So, you know, it's a matter of seconds rather than a matter of minutes. It just maximises your fishing time. You might want to go slightly more relaxed and gentle with your relaxed and gentle with your fishing, and just take it easier. But if you're looking to try and catch as many fish as you can, enjoy your session, then yeah, have a spare rig baited up, ready to go. It's called double patting, if you want to put a posh word to it. Something match anglers do all the time. Double patting, sometimes triple patting. I've been known to have 6, 7, 8 baited rigs out in competitions before. It's particularly fast and frantic fishing. What about time saving? So, there we go. So that's now baited up. That's taken me a couple of 3 minutes to do. But whilst I've been doing that, my rod is over there catching fish. Now that's ready to go, I can reel that one in, cast this one out, deal with the fish, and bait that one up, and catch more fish. That's the plan anyway. Coming in thick and fast now. That was barely out there, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes. Whiting. Tiny whiting. But the best of all, best fish in the sea, that pouting. There is no better fish than a pouting. I'm convinced of it. So, let's have a quick look, shall we? Just for those of you who are perhaps unsure, the whiting is a much thinner, more streamlined fish. Okay? Now, I appreciate these are very small, but there you go, that's your whiting. Very thin, very streamlined, really sharp teeth as well. No bib, no... I was going to say tentacle. It's really not a tentacle. Let's stick with bib. No bib on its chin. Mr. Poutingus mahusimus over here has this little beardy bib here. One of its other names is actually a bib. It also has this black spot at the base of the pectoral fin. This is the pectoral fin. And that's how you go. But it's a shorter, sort of stumpier, fatter fish. Much deeper in its body shape. So that's a pouting, the other one's a whiting. You get a paw cod, which is almost sort of in between the two. It doesn't have the black dot on the pectoral fin. Slightly slenderer, yeah. So that's a pouting and a whiting. 2 bread and butter fish this time of year. And whilst I've been saying all that, another rod's going again. I'm going to get those unhooked, I'm going to get them back. They're in a bucket of water, still right at the moment. Get that rig baited up, swap over again. Pretty fast and frenetic fishing at the minute, which is quite good fun. Nothing big yet, but to be honest, on these tides, and come to a slightly different venue, so it was more about catching numbers of fish tonight than catching anything big. But as long as you've got a bait in the water, you've always got a chance. Oh, boingy boingy, rattly rattly. There's nothing more boingy boingy, rattly rattly than pout and whiting fishing in the winter. Oh, maybe scad fishing, some more in autumn actually. We'll come to that later in the year. It's another triple shot. Whiting, pouting again. Oh, just the one this time, but a bigger whiting. A sizable whiting. Good. Okay, so have a go at this again. Again, very deeply hooked fish, all the way down there. I'm just going to try and pull the bead and the worm out of the way. I'm going to use my stump disgorger here to unhook the fish. Really easy. Let's see what we've got on this time. It's a bit of a miserable night tonight. It's like kind of constant drizzly rain. Mind you, it's very warm for January. I doubt it's even dropped down to single figures. It's got a bit of weed in my tip cream. Oh, just a double shot this time. I'm slacking. It's another triple shot of whiting. Ferocious down here tonight. As expected. Well, there you go, I just reeled in my umpteenth pin whiting of the evening. There's been loads and loads of fish down here tonight. Nothing on the big rod whatsoever. I've just kind of abandoned that one, to be fair. I think it's still in its second cast. I think this cast's been out there for about 2 hours. Just completely abandoned it. Been too busy with the 3 at flapper, catching all those little fish in close. You might wonder why. Why have I done that? Why have I come down here catching tiny pin whiting when I could have gone to Southbourne again, looked for another ray, or could have gone to Milford and looked for a ray and dogs down there, or something like that. But I just wanted to come to a venue that really highlights how sometimes fishing can be easy. So if you're a complete beginner, or you're struggling to catch a few fish at the moment, or juniors, this is a great junior venue. Friars Cliff. It's very, very short range stuff. Most of my fish were in the end about sort of 30 yards. I was just sort of, sideways flicking it out. Really small baits, really little bait presentation, so it's not an expensive evening. And I've got so much, but why I bought this much bait with me. So juniors, I mean, if you've got a little sort of 10-foot flatty rod or a 10-foot sort of spinning rod, something like that, and a little 2-ounce lead, that's ample because there's no tide down here whatsoever. And it's a great little venue to come and just catch fish. You might, every now and again, bump into something decent. Because there are bass down here, there are rays down here, there are dogs down here, but predominantly at the moment, especially the way I was fishing tonight, it is the smaller fish. And sometimes it's just about changing your mindset a little bit. If I'd have come down tonight thinking, right, evening guys, we're going to catch a ray, we're going to catch a bass, we're going to catch a cod and a mermaid and a poor beagle, and all I caught was tiny pin whiting, I'd have been, that's disappointing, isn't it? But I didn't. I came down tonight thinking, I'm going to use me scratching rigs and see if I can scratch out a load of little fish. And that's exactly what I've done. So I'm not disappointed. Quite enjoyed it. Really busy. I'm pretty hot and sweaty. Despite being January, I think it's still about 10 degrees. And running around catching loads of fish. It's good fun. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. I've still got both my rods out. I suspect I'll probably just reel in some small pin whiting, so I'll save you the excitement of seeing those ones again as well. Can't speak. But yeah, hope you've enjoyed this one. Nothing major to see, but hopefully seen how I present my worm and bait on my smaller scratching rigs. yeah, until next time. Ciao for now.